All right, today we're jumping into one of the most credible, just baffling, and incredibly well-documented military UFO encounters ever. We're talking about the 1976 Tehran incident. And look, this was way more than just some fleeting light in the sky. This was a full-on, high-stakes aerial showdown that completely disabled two advanced fighter jets. The story is just so wild, the official documents honestly read like a page out of a sci-fi novel.
No, that's not a line from some Hollywood blockbuster. That is a direct quote from a declassified U.S. Defense Intelligence Agency memo. I mean, this thing was sent straight to the White House and the NSA. Just that one sentence right there. It perfectly sets the stage for this incredible night of high-tech cat and mouse, a game that has left investigators scratching their heads for decades.
So let's set the scene. We're over Tehran, the sprawling capital of Iran. It's the early hours of September 19th, 1976. The night sky is crystal clear. But then, something shows up. Something so bright and so unusual that it triggered a whole flurry of frantic calls straight to the Air Force.
And this is a really important detail. The whole thing didn't kick off because of some blip on a military radar screen. Nope. It started with regular people. Just ordinary, worried citizens who started flooding the phone lines of the Imperial Iranian Air Force, all reporting these bizarre sightings in the sky.
And the descriptions they were getting? I mean, they were all over the map. You had 4 separate calls coming in from one area alone. Some said it looked like a bird-like object. Others were sure it was a helicopter with a light on. Except, well, there were no helicopters in the air. The reports just kept coming in. They were so persistent that eventually Air Force General Yousefi decided he had to go see for himself. And guess what? He saw it too. He described it as being kind of like a star, but way bigger and just incredibly bright. That's when he made the call. It was time to scramble a jet.
Okay, and this is the moment where everything just escalates, and I mean dramatically. The Imperial Iranian Air Force doesn't just send up one jet, they scramble 2 F-4 Phantom IIs. Now, you gotta understand, these were some of the most advanced interceptor jets of that era. And their mission? Find out exactly what was flying in their airspace. So things started moving incredibly fast. Within just an hour of those first civilian calls, you've got an F-4 in the air. But get this, only 5 minutes into its intercept mission, that jet is completely crippled and has to turn back. So a second F-4 is launched almost right away, and what that crew is about to see, well, it's gonna defy all logical explanation. All right, there's a really key detail here, a specific number to remember. 25 nautical miles. Because as that first F-4 Phantom got to that exact range, boom, all of its electronics, we're talking communications, instruments, the whole shebang, just went dead. And when the second jet got close, the object seemed to be actively, deliberately keeping that same 25-mile distance, almost like it knew the jet's operational limits. I mean, you can practically hear the sheer panic in the first pilot's voice on the recover tower recordings. To him, this wasn't just some random equipment glitch. It felt like a direct, defensive action from the object. Think about it. He's flying this state-of-the-art war machine, and in an instant, it's totally useless. So the second pilot, a guy named Major Parviz Jafari, he actually has a bit more luck. He manages to get into range, and his weapons officer gets a radar lock on the object. For just a second there, it feels like they've got it. And the way the pilot described it, it's just extraordinary. To the naked eye, it was this blindingly brilliant light with flashing strobes, blue, green, red, orange, all arranged in a kind of rectangle. But on radar, it was huge. It had a radar signature the size of a massive Boeing 707 tanker jet. And even with the F-4 pushing its speed, this thing just effortlessly, casually, kept that 25-mile buffer zone. Right. So, just when the crew thinks, okay, this can't possibly get any weirder, it does. Suddenly a second, smaller object, also brightly lit, just detaches from the main one, and it heads straight for Major Jafari's F-4, moving at a truly incredible speed. So Jafari does what any fighter pilot is trained to do. He goes on the defensive. He tries to fire an AIM-9 Sidewinder missile at this incoming object. And at that exact instant, just like with the first jet, his entire weapons control panel goes dark. His communications die, he's a sitting duck, completely defenseless. So after that close call, the smaller object goes back and rejoins the main one. But then, another object attaches. This one shoots straight down towards the ground. But it doesn't crash. The crew just watches in amazement as it seems to land, gently, softly, and then it just illuminates this massive patch of the desert floor, like a 2 or 3 kilometer area, with this brilliant light. I mean, what a story, right? And it's all backed up by credible military pilots and official government documents. But of course, after the dust settled, investigators started to dig in, looking for more mundane explanations for everything that happened that night. So that's the big question here, isn't it? Was this a genuine encounter with some kind of technology far beyond our own? Or could this whole complicated series of events just be a perfect storm of coincidences? Misidentification, equipment failures, natural phenomena all happening at once. So to try and answer that, investigators started breaking the whole night down, piece by piece, looking for those more conventional, down-to-earth explanations for everything they saw. Okay, first up, the main bright object. The skeptical explanation? It was just the planet Jupiter. See, at that time of year, Jupiter was unusually bright and was sitting pretty low on the horizon. And when that happens, it can cause all sorts of optical illusions and even make it look like it's moving around. All right, what about those catastrophic equipment failures on 2 separate jets? Well, according to American technicians who were actually stationed in Iran back then, the Iranian Air Force's F-4s had a bit of a reputation for having notoriously unreliable electronics and a history of pretty poor maintenance. So the argument is that the failures were probably just a very unlucky coincidence. And that object that seemed to land so gently in the desert, turns out they were several meteor showers active that night. So skeptics suggest that what the pilots actually saw was a really big, bright meteor, something called a bolide, that was just burning up as it streaked through the atmosphere. And this one's a great example of how even the weirdest details can have a pretty simple explanation. Remember that beeper signal they heard the next day near the supposed landing site? Well, it was most likely an emergency locator beacon from an American C-141 transport plane. Apparently, the turbulence over the nearby mountains was so bad, it was known to just pop these beacons right out of the aircraft by accident. But, even with all these plausible, logical explanations, the Tehran incident just refuses to go away. It really does remain one of the absolute most compelling cases in the entire history of UAP research. And the reason it has such staying power, it's right there in the words of the U.S. Defense Intelligence Agency. They're the ones who called it a classic encounter. Why? Because this wasn't just some fuzzy photo or a vague report. You had multiple, highly credible military witnesses, you had confirmation on both ground and airborne radar, and you had direct, measurable electromagnetic effects on 2 different advanced aircraft. That's a lot of data. I think the bigger takeaway here is that the Tehran incident really proves that this serious study of these kinds of phenomena, it's not new, and it's definitely not just an American thing. Governments and scientists from all over the world have been documenting and seriously investigating these encounters for decades. So in the end, we're left right back where we started, with this one big question. Was the Tehran incident a real deal encounter with some unknown, highly advanced technology that could literally outfly and outthink our best military aircraft? Or was it just an unbelievable string of coincidences? A bright planet, some faulty wiring, a falling meteor, all of it misinterpreted in the heat of a very stressful moment. Honestly, there's compelling evidence for both arguments. And for now, the real answer remains just out of reach.